Okay.
And together we are.
Podcasting.
And what are we together besides that? What is like our
friends?
What is our name together? Not the
was our name together?
Yeah, okay, we're not okay. So you've gone for a verb, which is podcast. That's what we're currently doing.
Our name together would be like Regan or something.
Oh, this...
Or Carrick, maybe Carrick.
Sounds like a okay.
Okay, we're dumb comic creators. I don't think anyone is. It's not a mystery to anyone. Go ahead.
We are dumb comic creators, okay. and today we have a special guest star named Holo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hollow.
Sorry, like
it's cool.
Like the Hollow Man, but hollow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you have an Instagram comic that you've also kind of turned into YouTube Shorts.
Yes.
Well.
Started out on Instagram and Twitter, and then kind of I opened up a Newgrounds, released it there, and then decided to make a little web series out of it.
And when did you start this comic? And the comic is called Groony Comic Strip. It's at Groony Comic Strip on Instagram.
Yeah, you can also find it on Newgrounds, Hollow Man comic. And I started it about a year ago, like a little over a year ago.
Okay.
And yeah, I remember how I started it. It was honestly a very strange beginning because I got a complete set of comics from a friend of mine, and he made the comics as well, and I put them into a binder, and I wanted to make a cover for the binder. So I drew up the cover, and I drew this little character who I named Groony with 1 O.
Okay.
I discovered that I enjoyed drawing that character, and it progressed into me creating an entire little comic strip series about him.
And up until that point, what was your experience drawing comics?
Very little, honestly. The thing with me and drawing is that it was always very difficult for me to draw and stuff, because I would always be super self-critical, and I would be obsessive on trying to match what's in my mind perfectly and stuff like that. So it would be frustrating. So whenever I would draw, I would try to draw stuff that I knew I could draw and I knew I could replicate. So very simple stuff. And I did try to create a comic strip or comic series before Groony, but that never left off the ground.
Okay.
And that eventually led to Groony, which is it's specially kind of designed for me to be my first comic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Something simple, but something that challenges me, and something that can become complex if I wanted it to, if I want to push myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what, can I ask some more leading questions about your background?
Sure.
What is this your this clearly is not your job. Are you an art background? Do you have an art background, or are you beyond just liking comics? Is this how did this come about in your life?
Well, for the longest time I can remember, I've been a fan of comics. I've loved 3 things in life, extraordinarily loved: comics, video games, and animation.
Okay.
And I've always been more interested in comics than any other thing. And of course, both of my parents loved comics. My dad loved the mainstream stuff, in particular, he loved DC. Okay. So he introduced a lot of that to me. And then you got my mom, who she is into the underground, the indie. Yeah. She loves ElfQuest and Bone and stuff like that. And and she introduced me to that stuff. And it kind of culminated in me having this lifelong passion for comics. And yeah, I've always known that my end goal was comics or storytelling, at least,
Yeah. Interesting.
And currently making comics isn't my job, but I want it to be. I'm working towards that.
Cool.
Would you prefer to be an artist, writer, or combination thereof?
A combination thereof. I really want to draw my own stuff, but I don't mind writing scripts for other people. You know, it's a fun process for me to write scripts, and that's a really interesting thing because I'm dyslexic, yet I enjoy writing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
interesting.
Thank God for autocorrect.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
And then, so you this is your first comic, yeah?
The first comic I've released, and my first proper comic.
What's a proper comic?
Proper.
Proper.
Oh, sorry. Okay, proper. Okay, and then so let's just break down the first comic that you made, if that's okay. It's like a 3-panel comic. It's number one. Cool. Number one Wiggle, right?
Yeah, number one Wiggle. Technically, that's not the first one I made, believe it or not. Like, okay. I did, that one was like the first one I released, but the first one I made, it would be like number 0. It's the same exact comic. It's just that this one was made like a smaller size format. It was a way for me to test the waters, figure out that I enjoyed drawing him in a comic form. And then from there, I figured everything else out before even starting, you know?
Right.
As I said, Groony was a way for me to challenge myself.
It's so interesting. And so when you started this comic, and it's 3 panels, it's is it okay if I call it kind of simple? Is that?
Oh yeah, totally. Okay, that's intentional.
Okay, all right, good. So it's simple. It's clearly it's just pen on paper.
Well, it's pencil. Then I inked it with Sharpies.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, I do have like proper big form comic paper and stuff, and after the 0 strip, I moved to bigger paper.
Wow.
Stuff that can really, yeah.
That's so cool, because I would have never expected that looking at it. But that's like a cool, that's something that's really neat to know, you know?
Yeah.
And so you do all the text here, and it's just I'm Groony, and then he wiggles, and then the 3rd frame is that is all. Ted is all. Is he? Yeah. Is he from this? What country is he from? Is he?
Well, with Groony, he comes from America.
Okay.
Later in life, he moved to Canada, and his family is a mixture of Italian and Scottish.
Okay. It's so specific. That's cool.
I have an entire lore figured out.
What? Really? Okay. Yeah. So this is why I really wanted you to be a guest on this show, because you look at this thing from just like click on the page, you can make assumptions, but as you like read through, it's very different, right, Eric? It's like there's layers to this Groony project. So for number 2, he's just really far away. It's like the same thing, but he's just far away in the frame. It's like this understanding of like the comic medium, you know?
Yeah.
And then he's like really close, and then and kind of like as you go through the comic, you add characters, you add this like villain character, you add his sidekick dog. These are like cliche characters in comics, you know, that you're playing with the medium a little bit. And then you start adding color, and I think what you see as you read through the Instagram feed is like is really the comic process unraveling before your eyes, like the evolution of comics, I guess.
You can definitely see that. It wasn't intentional, but it was me testing the waters with every strip. It was me figuring myself out, you know? Pushing myself more and more with every strip and figuring out, okay, I like this, I don't like that. I like to do this, I don't like to do that, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's just really experimental.
Right.
I would say just what?
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was like, I had an idea because I got to number 4, Prucci, where you introduced the dog. Yeah. But then there's also this.
The dog's name is Prucci. The dog's name is, and this little shadow guy who appears first in that strip. And interestingly enough, so I originally designed that shadow guy's name is Gribbly. He eventually gets revealed later on.
Okay.
And Gribbly, I originally designed him to be to have horns, you know.
Okay.
You can see him in that original shadow.
Yeah.
But then I just forgot about the horns. And recently I've been drawing a strip where Gribbly loses his hat, and I decided I would reintroduce the horns and have it be like, oh, he stored them away underneath his hat. And that's why you haven't seen them.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
How often do you say that's all in real life? Just out of curiosity.
Not that often. I go through these things where I say one specific phrase a lot, like basically or also or something like that. So it's kind of reflective of that with me. Like with me obsessively saying something in conversation, you know, like I forget what the recent one is. There's a recent one that I've been doing a lot, and it's probably going to come up multiple times in this interview, and nobody's going to even notice until after the fact. But yeah, I do something similar, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll listen out for it.
We'll find out by the end of this.
We'll find out by the end. We'll be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So, Eric, do you have any idea like where you thought this kind of popped off and became like different?
Well, my big thing is I read these backwards because I read it just on the very top for Instagram. So actually, I started off at 101 or whatever you were at, and went all the way down to 1.
Let me clarify for a second. Eric is like brand stinking new to Instagram. He's never used it before.
I actually don't have an Instagram profile.
Yeah.
So I've never used it. So I didn't know that like you're supposed to go to the very beginning. It's like, oh, you start at the top because that's where you're supposed to start.
Okay, so you have no idea where it
that's why with Instagram, that's why I like to say if you're going to read Groony for the first time, go to my Newgrounds account, read it from there because there's special made playlists of the strip in order so you can read it from start to finish.
I see.
Yeah.
So at some point, for me, it was like at some point he goes to the art museum.
The museum arc, as I've called it.
Yeah, so that was like kind of your first. I mean, there were shorter arcs where he was blown up. He was
at the park.
Or he fell off a cliff and then he was injured and then he got better. But like the museum arc kind of went on and on. And
yeah, it did. With the museum arc, I was really starting to experiment with what I was doing. Like for one of these strips, I literally sculpted a 3D Groony in real life.
Yeah. And
like used the little photo box, overlaid the strip over the photo box and took a picture and then edited it.
Right. I found
that. I remember that one. That was really, really good.
That was a huge hassle to do, but so worth it because I love comics when they do weird stuff like that. And I love to do weird stuff like that with my comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And you used clay for that one?
Oh yeah. I still have the little clay sculpture I made and I'm holding it right now.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I used clay. I used some like little dabs of whiteout around just to make stuff look a bit more copacetic. And yeah, it turned out wonderfully.
Andy Boo Andy, by the way, says that the museum arc is great.
Yeah, he really likes that arc.
So when did you go to the museum?
Did I go to the museum for that?
No, just in general. Like before you started the arc.
I've gone to art museums tons of times in my life. And I've always loved going to museums. And I didn't go to it for inspiration, but I drawed upon inspiration from like the past times I went to museums. and also like my ideas for museums, because I'm an archivist.
Okay.
Not like I'm an amateur archivist and historian when it comes to comics, and I've always loved the idea of opening up my own museum and showing my collection in that kind of way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, yeah. So you get really far out there and you start incorporating different art styles. Yeah.
Like, and I also, of course, with these, I reference various different comics. Like, there's one strip called Cosmic, which in it you have, of course, first and foremost, you have Stardust in the painting that Groony is seeing.
Yeah.
Who is like one of my favorite Golden Age characters. Then in the background, you see the spaceship of Space Hawk from Space Hawk, the classic Golden Age strip. And then also in the background, you see several other things, which I'm not going to spoil yet, but they're references. It's foreshadowing for future comics.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are we going to get a Groony universe? Do we have a Groony universe coming in?
Oh yeah. It's planned. I have the creation myth figured out. I'm writing a graphic novel right now for Stardust in this universe, because Stardust is canon.
Okay.
And I have plans.
Oh, wow.
I'm so tempted. It's just, yeah, I've been thinking of this stuff for years and slowly perfecting it, you know? Like, I always think of the analogy of like a storyteller as a blacksmith, but for words.
So did you draw a lot before you started making this comic?
Not that much, honestly. I tried drawing. My mom's an artist, and I always wanted to become an artist myself. And it was just became really, it was frustrating for me. It was like, it's hard to explain because I'm a bit of a polymath, if you know what that is. It's somebody who's talented at multiple things and it tends to pick up on like skills very easily, like quickly.
Okay.
But for every polymath, there's always that one or two things that it's like incredibly frustrating to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can be good at this. I should be good at this, but why am I not good at this? And for me, it was drawing. It was figuring out how stuff. But one of the reasons why I created Groony, because it was simple for me to draw. I could instantly draw it, you know, and it was a way for me to get drawing every day. Because back in the early arcs, I was able to do entire strips in a day, like multiple even. And I would like pump them out. And by the time I started releasing Groony, I had been drawing it for like a month already. So I had a backlog.
Oh, okay. That's good. That makes it easy to like keep up with the work.
And there came this point when I was drawing Groony, and then I sat back and I laid down and I looked at my walls, and I have comics hung up on my walls, and I started seeing these weird things, and I started like realizing, okay, so Todd McFarlane drawed that like this at first. And I was like, I'm starting to learn stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I started to figure out how stuff was drawn, you know, and I started, drawing every day really does help, even if it's like very simple.
It's practice, right?
Practice makes perfect. Have you ever ever gone to your mom for help? Because you said she was an artist. You're like, hey, Mom, I'm not sure how to do this.
I have gone to my mother for help like a few times, but not very many. Like the one time I really think that I did go to my mom for help was drawing Stardust.
Okay.
Because that was something exceedingly new for me. It was drawing action-y, I call it like action comic style kind of person.
Right.
It wasn't like a simple comic strip type dude with a bit of perspective like Groony is.
Yeah, it was like anatomy, right? Like
it was anatomy, and even for that, I have this hobby that I love to do on occasion called customizing, where I take action figures, take them apart, re-put them back together, and customize them into other characters.
Okay.
And I started work on a Stardust custom, never finished it, and I used a picture of that Stardust custom in a pose for reference for the drawings.
Wow. That's so cool. That's so cool. Andy Boo Andy says that his mom helps him too. Thanks, Andy, by the way, for
Thanks,
just
Andy,
like
by the way,
jumping in on this.
Andy Bird.
Yeah.
Love that dude.
Yeah. Birds of Sadness. He's on our Twitch chat for our podcast listeners. We stream live on Twitch as we record. But yeah, I saw that Birds of Sadness followed your comic on pretty much all of these as I was reading through. So I was excited to see if Andy would show up tonight.
He told me repeatedly he would show up. He was anticipating this day.
Oh, sweet. Oh, that's great.
He's been like yesterday he was asking, when are you doing the podcast? And I told him it's tomorrow. And he said, darn, I thought it was today. But he's been excited.
Yeah. I've been excited too, because we did this drawing challenge with Eric.
Yeah.
And Eric is somebody who thinks he can't draw too. But like,
I can't
what do
draw.
you think? What do you think? Couldn't you draw something similar to Groony Comic?
I think Hollow's art is better than mine, just in general. Like, so every single, like, your character actually looks like you have a skill in that you're able to draw the same character, like, by hand and make him look the same every single time. That's a skill. I mean, if you ever see like somebody who like does their homemade goods and they're able to make decorative cookies like that look the same every single time, that's a skill. It's hard to do. I can't do that. My Batman that I drew for the thing, each Batman looked different. It was like we had Val Kilmer to George Clooney to Bane, and never a good Batman.
Yeah, and I'm gonna back him up on that. Like this, it might look simple, but I think that your skills have improved, and it's really become like a really interesting comic.
Oh yeah, I'm currently like pushing my skills to the absolute limit because it's like I'm working on the finale, and the grand finale, and I have it all like kind of scripted out already. I have ideas, I figured them out, and oh my god, I'm so excited to try and draw what I have planned and failed miserably at it, probably multiple times, but get it right in the end because I'm excited, man.
Oh, that's great. So at some point, you started animating Groony. Was that early on or was that later?
It was a bit later. Well, I animated a little bit when I was younger, when I was in like when I was in high school and stuff, because I had the 3DS, and the 3DS had like a stop motion feature, and I loved making stop motion videos with my friend and doing that. So I had a little bit of experience beforehand.
Right.
So when I started Groony, I knew, okay, what animation skills do I already have? I know how to do stop motion. Okay, I'm going to make it a stop motion animated series.
Right.
So, but then, like after the pilot was made, and I released it, and I was like, okay, a little like during the pilot creation, I was figuring the rest out, I knew Groony and Prucci had to be like puppets, had to be paper puppets with like various different expressions and stuff. So I made Groony, and then I made Prucci, and then I got to Gribbly, and I was like, Gribbly's weird. He's supposed to be otherworldly, kind of. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to make Gribbly like traditionally animated, like hand-drawn, and make animation cells for him.
Oh, interesting.
So I now have at least one binder full of Gribbly's foot in multiple different stages of coming onto screen.
Wow.
In cell form, And like while I was doing all this and while I was animating, and I of course watched cartoons, Yeah. I started to notice, the techniques that were used in animation. And then I realized after doing Gribbly for like an episode and a half that Hanna-Barbera was not lazy. They were simply smart.
Right.
It's so intensive to do like hand-drawn animation that it comes down to your own sanity to reuse some of it,
Right. Are you doing Dragon Frame? What are you using for that?
What am I stop motion wise?
Yeah.
Just like this random app I found on the Google store on my phone.
Okay.
It's just a random stop motion app, and then and so real quick, I need to say this. So if for some reason the stop motion app, when it outputted a video, there were weird things about the video. So when I tried uploading them to Newgrounds, for some reason they wouldn't work. Newgrounds' Newground player wouldn't play them, and I thought, oh, this must be just a problem with my computer. So I uploaded 3 full episodes, and they didn't work. And somehow they managed to stay up on Newgrounds until the point in time where I figured out how to make them work on Newgrounds, which is a whole process in and of itself. And it just,
Yeah, video gets very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so so there's one thing maybe our listeners don't know, if they do know you and your work, because I watch everything with captions on as a new parent, you know, and very, very little actual sound coming out of my speakers. I have to like caption everything. So the captions were on for your videos.
You found the secret.
So was this intentional? There's everything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's like these journal entries, and it's like, dear journal, it's been awful, you know, at camp, and like, but hopefully that's about to change. I mean, it's like, if you're watching the video, all that plays is like this old timey music, you know,
old timey music with the Groony, the little old dude doing his thing. But then you turn on the captions and you see what's happening. You know, you're reading. And, well, I'm going to say this. Groony was heavily, and I mean heavily, inspired by Little Nemo and Slumberland.
Okay.
The entire thing is heavily inspired by Little Nemo and Slumberland and the comic strip Gorefield, which is a parody of Garfield, where Garfield is the Lovecraftian creature and haunts John. And basically, Groony's kind of a merging of the two ideas in a way.
Okay.
I would even dare to consider it and to refer to it as like kind of an anti-Little Nemo.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Groony has like a definitive story, and the cartoon and the comic strip are both canon to the story.
Okay.
It's just a matter of figuring out how to put the pieces together.
But what is the captions?
The captions, I'll give you this. They are from Groony.
They're from Groony. Groony wrote the captions.
Groony wrote the captions in his little journal.
Are the captions in each of the episodes? Are they on all 3, or was that like something you added?
All 4 episodes, including the pilot, have captions.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. If you go on YouTube, he's got 3 of them up.
Yeah.
So, listeners, go on YouTube, find
There's 4.
Stuff. There's 4? I only found 3. Okay.
There's 4. There's the
episode
pilot. 0. Yeah.
Oh, episode 0. Okay, I saw 1, 2, and 3. That's what must have happened.
Yeah. It's
okay.
I kind of regret labeling it episode 0 because it makes people think that it's optional.
Yeah.
When it really isn't to a degree. So I kind of regret doing that, but at the same time, it feels like a pilot, you know. It has a bunch of mistakes, and in one way I feel this way, in one way I feel that way, you know. I'm torn.
Yeah.
On episode 0.
That's so interesting.
That's really cool.
Wow.
What was Groony's inspiration? Because like you said he's got his own like backstory and everything. Was like, what was the inspiration like just as a character for him?
Well, as a character with Groony specifically, he's inspired by characters like John and Little Nemo, of course. Mm-hmm. But he's also inspired by characters like on both a conscious and subconscious level, if that makes sense. So on a conscious level, I modeled him kind of after Homer and Carl Fredricksen from from Up. You know, I modeled him after those characters. Personality-wise, he's kind of similar to a more playful John Arbuckle. And he has a similar career as well to John Arbuckle, you know. And just in general, he's very also Little Nemo-esque. But then
the cartoonist?
He's a cartoonist, yes.
Okay.
You can see his cartooning skills in one of the museum arc strips.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, but basically I have, but then on a subconscious level, I feel like he was definitely inspired by characters like Pops from Regular Show, Salad Fingers from the web series Salad Fingers.
Right.
And surprisingly enough, I found that he's actually kind of similar in a way to Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. Like he's an anti-Rick.
I got Hans Moleman, which is that one, which is for the Simpsons character.
Hans Moleman. The man gets hit by a football.
Yep, the best movie of all time.
The best movie. It deserves to be in the Criterion Collection, and it's a travesty that it's not.
It is a tragedy. Keegan, who's looking blank, and all our listeners, we're referring to the Simpsons character who wears giant glasses, and in one of the Simpsons episodes, he is in a movie where all it is a football kicked into his groin, and he falls over in pain.
Yeah. And also, Groony, there's like definitely a lot more like internet influences to his character as well. Like I already mentioned Salad Fingers, and I feel like in a way it's kind of also influenced by this infamous webcomic called Tales Gets Trolled, if you're familiar. And Tales Gets Trolled is one of those comics that starts out and it's kind of crappy and you don't know what you're reading, but then as you continue on, it starts to actually get kind of good. And then by the end of it, you get invested fully and you're like, I'm invested in this thing that on the surface looks one way, but in actuality is another, you know?
Yeah, that's so interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. It's freaking, I love another character that kind of influenced Groony. This is a very loose influence. And the only reason I'm saying it's kind of an influence is because another character from the same show heavily influenced Gribbly.
Okay.
And this character, actually two characters I want to mention, and the same relationship applies. John Egbert from Homestuck and Elliot from Elliot Goes to School. They're the kind of straight man characters to the insane universe with John having like extraversal powers compared to everybody else and stuff. And they're, the straight man to the insane universe, which kind of brings me to Gribbly. And Gribbly has just as like an interesting influence wheel, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Of characters, because you have Gribbly, he's definitely influenced by like Pennywise and Kermit the Frog, if that makes sense. He's a Muppet.
Yeah.
Me, my family, and my friend group all refer to Gribbly as the evil Muppet. You know, he's
that's so interesting.
Definitely influenced. He's influenced by like Pennywise, the Joker, the obvious choices. He's influenced by definitely by Gamzee. His whole like honking his horn thing, that's like directly lifted from the character Gamzee from Homestuck. And Gribbly's whole like appearing out of nowhere attitude is in general a thing with a lot of these characters, but it's specifically kind of a reference to the character Elmer J. Sapp from Elliot Goes to School.
Okay. And
his shtick of like kind of appearing out of nowhere, being the weird one, cannibalizing people. Just I call the trope, the trope, the archetype of this character, the non sequitur. You know?
Yeah.
The weirdo. And then of course with Prucci, it's like very influenced by characters like Odie from, you know, Garfield. In fact, originally, a bit of behind the scenes Groony lore. Originally, Prucci was supposed to be a lot more cynical and weird and have like a snaggletooth. I'd be a lot more Garfield-like.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense. But I decided, you know, I already have Gribbly as this antagonistic force. I don't want this character to be the same antagonistic force, just kind of different. So I made him like a goody two-shoes, if that makes sense.
It does.
The faithful steed, or man's best friend to Groony, you know?
Yeah.
And also, little artist note. Prucci has 4 eyes.
Seriously?
Prucci has 4 eyeballs.
Where are they?
If you check one of the strips, I forget the name of it, but during like after the museum arc, when Groony's hiding away in his home and he's terrified, and Prucci goes outside, you see him turning around and looking around, and you see him look towards the camera, and you see 2 eyes on one side of his head and 2 eyes on the other. He has like Peppa Pig.
Oh.
That kind of thing where he has 4 eyes.
This is so detailed. Hollow. Seriously, this is just so detailed.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to like write a companion if you ever release this as a book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually I want to do, because I have a universe planned. I would love to do like a universe dictionary. You know how the Marvel and DC universe have like a visual guide and they have like little synopsises of all the characters and stuff. I would love to do something like that for my characters. And I already actually like wrote up a little thing for Gribbly and his origin and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And just figuring him out. And yeah, it's freaking like, and Gribbly's monstrous form and like, spoiler alert, Gribbly's monster form in like the later Groony strips and like the recent ones, when you see when like after Groony walks out and after like the month-long the month-long 1-year anniversary celebration I did for Groony, you see this one strip and it's the full pager and you see this giant monstrous form of Gribbly and there's top and bottom panels, and I was so much fun to like design and figure out.
Oh yeah. You mean like your newest ones, 103? Or is that different?
Hold on, let me check. 103.
Like
yeah, it's one of
the ones that you just posted.
No, 94.
94? Okay.
94. And this one I accidentally flubbed up a bit for like the bottom half because Instagram is weird and doesn't allow you to do full like full pages.
Yeah, right.
And so the bottom one is actually an earlier version of the same strip. You notice that the bottom panels don't have an outline. Luckily, the right one was posted to both Instagram and Newgrounds. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, the bottom and top panels kind of tell a story separate from the events happening, but like directly tied, if that makes sense.
Wait, so are these like squares with the bang and like the soldier? Are those intentional?
Yes. Those are intentional. And this is actually the first strip where I collaborated with my good friend and kind of like definitely co-creator of the universe that Groony takes place in.
Okay.
Yeah, this is so he drew. I like paneled everything out and created references for the top and bottom panels, but he drew them, and his stuff is gorgeous. I think really captures what I was going for, you know.
And that's Electric Coatanger with a K for coat.
Yeah, he's a tremendous artist. I love his stuff.
Wow, cool.
But yeah, he like collabed with me for that panel or for that strip.
Okay. And
then for strips 101 to 103.
Right.
He drew the soldier.
The soldier, yeah, which comes back in those panels.
And I'll tell you this. This may spoil it a bit, but the soldier is directly tied to the letters we see in the Groony episodes.
Right, and so when Groony drew himself at the museum, he like draws that Groony was here, which is like a reference directly to Kilroy was here. So is Groony the character of Kilroy? Is he like connected to that
No,
which was graffiti that soldiers put up in World War II.
Groony's War is after World War II.
Okay.
But he is definitely if you notice in one of the earlier strips during the museum arc, like right when it starts getting a bit darker during the museum arc, something happens. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the Instagram is a bit weird. Also, like to tell you how far I went with like the lore of Groony, even the April Fool's Day strip, strip number 0401, that actually ties into the universe.
Okay.
That's like a part. It's interesting. Anyways, but yeah, it's at strip number. Sorry, Instagram strip number 70. You see Groony, and he sees a piece, and it makes him kind of look shameful. Makes him look shameful, and look at the piece he saw. If you can recognize. If you recognize the character, if you don't, tell me if you don't recognize the character, and I'll explain.
I don't recognize the character.
Well, that character is a character by the name of the Super Green Beret, created by the same creative team that created the original Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And the Super Green Beret was created in the 60s during Vietnam. He was a Vietnam fighting super patriot. Basically, they took Golden Age sensibilities about the war and stuff and applied it to Vietnam with the Super Green Beret.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the Super Green, he's a glorification of a terrible war, you know? And yeah, Gribbly, I want to say spoiler alert for anybody listening. The strip is kind of like, it's a horror story about trauma and post-traumatic stress.
Okay, I see.
If that makes
it does.
About Groony dealing with that and kind of going through the motions, and the thing is like he let it fester in him, and that bit him in the ass now, and now he's dealing with it even worse than he would have back in the day. And the top and bottom strips in the Monstrous Gribbly portion, that Monstrous Gribbly. That's his kind of story, what he saw, what happened, you know?
I see. Okay.
That makes sense.
Interesting.
Very much.
Okay, maybe Eric wouldn't be able to draw anything like this.
No.
Just kidding.
Well, I mean, you also like have a borderline encyclopedic knowledge of comics that like.
Oh yeah.
Like that, like just reading from your comic, I wouldn't have gotten that unless you explained it to me. That's why I agree with Keegan that like, if you ever do release this as a book, you need to have one page to comic, then like one page of inspiration, like from every single thing you drew from, even if it's like repeating itself.
Also, there's a strip I did earlier in one of the strips I did earlier, and it's Groony and he's listening to music, and I actually used Now, this is only going to come into relevance later on when I've done another series I have planned, so it ties back in. But the song that's playing is a Cab Calloway song.
Okay.
And whatchamacallit? Forgetting the name. It's the creepy one. It's one of his scary songs. And it appeared in a Betty Boop cartoon. It's like... the one where Coco the Clown turns into like a ghost, and is rotoscoped over Cab Calloway dancing.
You've got me. The Reefer Man? No?
I don't believe it's the Reefer Man. It's something else. Hold on. I'm just gonna look up
Jitterbug? No.
Calloway. Calloway. Betty Boop or cartoon. That should show it. It's Cab Calloway's St. James Infirmary Blues.
St. James Infirmary. Oh yeah, I know that song.
Yeah. So I kind of I love hiding like Easter eggs that enhance the story and experience and themes rather than take away. Because if you do Easter eggs and references too much, it becomes gratuitous and takes away from the story. I like to have it just right so it enhances stuff. So it's the kind of thing that you only notice after like learning about facts and like reading a fact page, as you said, you know.
So in that
like
comic that has the music in it, you just have Greebly
I just have
holding a pie, and then at the end of the comic, the pie is on his face,
oh
Groony's face.
oh no, that's a different comic.
That's a different one. Okay.
That comic is him with the Jack in the Box, and I can't believe nobody's noticed this yet, but that comic is a meme. That entire comic is a meme. It's
what do you mean?
Lost. It's Lost, dude. If you know Lost.
Yes.
Are you?
Oh no, so I never watched that show. Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
It's the Lost meme. No, not Lost as in the show. I mean Lost as in the comic strip from like Control Alt Delete.
Oh no, I'm not familiar with that.
Oh yeah, well, it's this whole thing on the internet where this epic gamer webcomic from the 2000s called Control Alt Delete
okay
tried to get serious, and they tried to do a serious plot line. And that plot line and that plot line like crescendoed at the 4-panel comic in the same structure, and it's of the character's wife, the main character's wife, having a miscarriage.
Oh my god, really?
Oh my god, yeah.
And it's in an epic gamer webcomic that's supposed to be comedic.
Yeah, no, I read
all
Control
really
Alt
dramatic.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all dramatic, and then the author kind of acted like an ass after the fact, and it's become this huge, long-running meme on the internet where people draw a panel layout and put lines in that specific order, and people like are always asking, "Is that Lost?" So I'm surprised nobody's noticed that Lost meme already.
Gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy noticed it. Andy says in the Twitch chat.
I also
wow.
also strip number 29. I totally lifted that entire strip from whatchamacallit, from Little Sammy Sneeze.
Little who? Sorry?
Little Sammy Sneeze. He was created by Winsor McKay, the same dude who did Little Nemo and Slumberland, and it was like his work before Little Nemo. And in like one of the strips, Sammy sneezes the panels away.
Oh really? Oh, funny. Yeah, that's exactly.
It's like one of the first. It's like one of the first fourth wall breaks in a comic, and that's what happens. But then, since the panels are gone in the next strip, there are no panels, so Groony gets very confused because there are 3 of him in one place, and then you see the next strip, which is a 0.5, and it's Groony falling into tentacles or tendrils with little eyes on them.
Okay.
That piece was really fun to make. It was such a like fun process to figure out and stuff.
What are the black things made of?
Well, it's Gribbly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's Gribbly. I meant like in real life. Is that just yarn?
In real life. No. I used this inking marker. I forget the name of it, but basically, so what I did was, of course, I first put on the pencil layer, then I put on this colored pencil layer. Then at the lowest point, I put on a bunch of charcoal.
Okay.
And then with the tendrils, I used this special inking marker, and as soon as I put the ink on, I smeared it.
I see.
Okay.
I smeared it with an eraser, and it gave this really cool effect. And those dots are just like hole punch dots from a really old piece of paper I had to give them that yellow texture.
Oh, that's funny.
That's funny.
Again, it got really creative. And then the next 3 strips after the 3 strips where Groony sneezes away, gets confused, and falls into nothing are him having a dream, a nightmare. And it's the thing that we're seeing first, you know? He sneezed so hard, he knocked himself out, so now he's dreaming.
Right, yeah. Comic is all about time, you know, between panels, and you definitely play with that in very interesting ways.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly fun I just love having fun with my comics and doing weird stuff. And like weird stuff that nobody's gonna notice. Like only a small percentage are gonna notice, but those small percentage really appreciate it
until they listen to this podcast, and then they go and like try and figure out what they're missing in your comic.
Yeah.
I think we could talk to you all night, but
yes.
I think this has been eye-opening. Maybe you'll come back when you finish Groony, and we can talk more about
also
it.
when Stardust gets finished as well.
Oh yeah, I'm planning. I've already worked on creating one comic strip that I'm doing next, but that's been put on hold for a while. But I'm planning on returning to it soon. Of course, a tie-in comic. The comic that I did for Zomic Book is a tie-in comic to Groony.
Right, and explain Zomic Book again.
It's the anthology comic that Brian put together.
Brian Judge, yeah, he was a guest a few times on our show.
Yeah, I talked before coming on. Of course, I talked to him about it and stuff. And Bird, we like every so often we have draw jam nights on a Discord server we're a part of.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, we talk and stuff, and they convinced me to come on. You know,
that's so cool. That's so great. We're really happy that they did, because this has been the best deep dive into a comic, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just interesting to listen to you, just because you've got like such a lore knowledge of comics in general. So
yeah, that's
there's a ton of Easter eggs in Groony that nobody's noticed. That I love, like that I really enjoy pointing out the little references and Easter eggs.
I'm so sorry to laugh when you say that. I think it's just fantastic that that's the case, and I laugh because it's like so interesting. Really, it's so interesting to hear you say that. I get you.
Also,
yeah.
Sorry,
because just at face value, it doesn't look like that, you know. But that was kind of the intention, you know. It was to make it look like one thing, but as you read it along, you realize it's another. It's deceptively simple to get you in a place of like calmness before you get scared by Gribbly's creepy face. Gosh, I really love art that's like that. Really, like my stuff is a lot like that too. So like I find that interesting, and I'm so happy that you talk so much about your comic and came on our show.
I'm so glad I came on. I loved it. This was very fun.
And please come back.
Oh yeah, one of the comics I'm working on that I put on postpone was Idiots Co. And it's a very different comic that I'm prepping for. It's I'm gonna say it's a Gary's Mod comic.
Okay.
It's a comic made using the video game Gary's Mod, and that has its own history and lore and stories and stuff that I would love to talk ad nauseum about.
Yeah, and we'll get ready, and like next time you come on the show, you have to send us like references of like so that we can have like some background knowledge. Yeah, send us.
Oh, I'll send
us
a
the
list
footnotes,
of
you know.
I'll make sure I'll set up like a little note on my phone, or whatever I think of something that I may talk about on the next podcast. I'll like write a little note of it and make a list, a little listicle of all the stuff I reference.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Well, Holo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem, my dude. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, great.
I think. You know, I think that's how it's said.
Yeah,
I don't communicate with other humans much.
Hey, who does these days, you know?
Yeah, who does? I was used to I was already freaking doing the pandemic stuff before the pandemic broke out, so I was prepared.
You merely adapt to the darkness. I was born to it.
You merely adapted the socially awkward guy, you know? I endured it for years.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
I lived in it. Was
Let the
molded
world
by
catch
it.
up to you. That's what I say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing 5-dimensional chess while everybody's still playing 4D.
Awesome. Holo, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
No problem. Talk to you soon, my dudes.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.